The snow falls the way grief does, quietly, without warning, covering everything familiar until nothing looks the same. It is 11 o'clock at night when Nora's shoes hit the wet pavement outside the Hartwell estate. She does not run. She never runs. 3 years of working in this house have taught her that dignity is the one thing no one can take from you, not without your permission. But she has barely reached the iron gate when she hears it. "Nora, Nora, wait, please." The voice is small, 6 years old and already acquainted with loss. She turns. Lily Hartwell stands barefoot on the stone steps in her nightgown, her dark hair loose around her shoulders, her arms stretched toward the only world that has made sense to her since her mother stopped coming home. Behind her, the front door is still open. Light spills across the snow like something that cannot decide whether to stay or go. "Lily," Nora's voice catches. "You'll freeze, sweetheart. Go back inside." "Don't go." "I won't let you go." "Oh, I'll tell Papa I'll stop eating. I'll stop sleeping." Nora crosses the distance between them in 4 steps. She kneels in the snow, her good coat, her only coat, and she pulls Lily against her chest and holds her the way you hold something you are terrified of losing. "Shh, shh, my brave girl. You are going to be so fine. You are going to be. Don't leave me. You're the only one who stays." From the doorway, a man watches. His name is Daniel Hartwell. He is 38 years old, worth more money than most countries, and he has not cried since the morning they lowered his wife into the ground. He built walls after that. Good ones. The kind that keep everything out: the grief, the guilt, and apparently the truth. He watches his daughter cling to a woman he just fired, and for the first time in 2 years, something cracks. Before I tell you how this began and how it ends, please take one moment to subscribe to this channel. We tell stories about the kind of love that doesn't announce itself. The kind that scrubs floors and stays late and asks for nothing and changes everything. If you've ever been that person or been lucky enough to know one this story is for you, her full name is Nora Calloway. She was born in a small apartment above a laundromat in the town of Greer, South Carolina, to a woman who smelled of lavender and lies. Her mother, Diane, was the kind of beautiful that made people forgive things they shouldn't. She had a talent for leaving for packing a single bag and disappearing before sunrise, always with a new man and a new set of promises that had nothing to do with her daughter. Nora was 9 the first time Diane left. She told herself it was temporary. She believed it for almost a year. Her father did the best he could, which was not very much. He worked 2 jobs and came home exhausted and quiet. And by the time Nora was 12, he had found a way to disappear too slowly, into a bottle, into the couch, into a version of himself that couldn't see her anymore even when she was standing right in front of him. She learned early that love was not something you were given. It was something you built brick by patient brick with your own 2 hands, and then you protected it like it was the only thing standing between you and the cold. She put herself through community college cleaning offices at night. She studied early childhood education because children, she had discovered, were honest in a way that adults had long forgotten how to be. A child does not pretend to be fine when they are falling apart. A child reaches for you with their whole body. She got a job at a daycare, then a preschool, then a position as a live-in caretaker for a family in Charlotte who treated her, after 3 years, like furniture. When they relocated to London without a second glance in her direction, she found herself 31 years old, with a good reference letter and an empty apartment and a bank account that was aching. She answered the Hartwell ad on a Tuesday in February. The listing was sparse. 1 child. Grief-affected household. Long hours, competitive salary, discretion required. She took it without asking questions. She had learned that some answers only reveal themselves once you've already walked through the door. Daniel Hartwell built his first company at 24 from a rented desk and a borrowed laptop. By 30, he had sold it for $40 million. By 35, he had built 3 more. He was not a warm man, but he had been once a good one. The people who worked for him longest could tell you exactly when that changed. It was the morning of March 11th, 2 years ago, when his wife Sarah did not come home from her evening run. She was found on the Riverbank Road 3 miles from their home. The official verdict was an accident. A slippery shoulder, a drop in visibility, a moment of terrible luck. The unofficial whispers, the ones that circled through the estate staff and his business partners, and eventually his own sleepless mind suggested something else. Something that wore the face of his former business partner Marcus Vane, who had reason and means and an alibi that was by any careful examination too clean. Daniel had looked into it. His investigators had looked into it. Nothing was ever proven. He stopped sleeping properly after that. He stopped eating meals at the table. He threw himself into work with the ferocity of a man trying to outrun something that has no legs but never stops. And Lily, his daughter, Sarah's daughter, the small miraculous person who had her mother's dark eyes and her father's stubborn jaw, Lily went quiet. She had been speaking in full sentences the week before Sarah died. After, the words stopped coming. The doctors called it selective mutism. They said it was grief made physical. They said she would find her way back when she felt safe. Daniel hired the first nanny within a month. She lasted 8 weeks. The second lasted 12. The third walked out on a Thursday and left a note that said simply, "I am not equipped for this." He read the note twice. He put it in the drawer. He called the agency and asked for someone else. She arrived 10 minutes early, which he noted. He conducted the interview in his study, a room designed to communicate power, all dark wood and tall bookshelves and windows that looked out onto grounds that went on too long to be necessary. He asked the standard questions. She answered them without embellishment or performance. Then he said, "My daughter doesn't speak. She hasn't spoken in nearly 2 years. If this is a problem for you, we can end the interview now." Nora looked at him for a long moment. "Does she listen?" He blinked. "What, your daughter? Does she listen, even if she doesn't speak?" "Ah, yes. She pays attention to everything." "Then we'll be fine," Nora said. "A child who listens is a child who's still trying to connect. She's not gone. She's just waiting for something safe to come toward." He studied her. Most candidates tried to reassure him, talked about credentials, approaches, success stories. This woman had simply turned the problem inside out and handed it back to him as something manageable. He hired her that afternoon. He told himself it was purely practical. Lily would not look at her the first day, or the second. Nora did not push. She moved through the house quietly, learned its rhythms, left books in places where Lily might find them. She spoke in the little girl's direction without demanding response, narrating small things, noticing things out loud. The color of the afternoon light, the shape of the clouds. On the 4th day, Lily sat down 3 feet away from her on the library rug while Nora read aloud. On the 7th day, she sat right beside her. On the 9th day, she leaned against Nora's shoulder and fell asleep. Nora sat very still for 40 minutes rather than disturb her. She invented a story about a girl named Wren who could understand the language of birds and translated their messages for anyone who was too sad to hear properly. The birds in the story said things like, "The person who left you did not leave because you were not enough," and "The sky is not empty just because it looks that way from down here." She never explained the story, she just told it. 3 weeks into her time at the estate, she found Lily standing in the kitchen doorway at 7 in the morning with a crayon drawing clutched against her chest. She held it out. It was a girl with brown hair and a bird on her shoulder and a yellow sun that took up half the page. At the bottom, in careful 6-year-old letters, Nora. Nora accepted the drawing with both hands, the way you receive something sacred. "This is the most beautiful thing anyone has ever made me," she said. And she meant it. The smile that moved across Lily's face was small and careful and enormous. In October, Lily got sick. High fever, deep cough, 4 nights of restless half-sleep. Nora moved a chair into her room and did not leave. She slept sitting up, one hand resting on the little girl's blanket, waking at every sound. Daniel appeared in the doorway on the 2nd night. He stood there for a moment, watching, and she turned and saw him and said quietly, "She's okay. Fever broke a little around midnight. She's sleeping better now." He opened his mouth, closed it, nodded, went back to his room. She didn't know he stood in the hallway for another 10 minutes. In November, Lily's birthday. Nora spent her entire paycheck, every dollar, carefully saved on materials for a party, handmade decorations, a cake she baked herself at 5 in the morning, a small telescope, because Lily had once pointed at the night sky with an expression of wondering hunger. Daniel had planned to be in New York. He came home instead. He stood in the kitchen doorway watching his daughter press her eye to the telescope's lens, her face alive in a way he had forgotten was possible. Nora did not tell him about the paycheck. She never told him. He found out from Maggie, the housekeeper, 6 months later. By then, everything had already gone wrong. Her name was Claire Voss. She had known Daniel for years peripherally, the way certain people exist in your orbit without ever quite falling into it. She was sharp and composed, and she had been waiting, with a patience that in retrospect was its own kind of terrifying, for the right moment. She appeared at a business dinner in March, sat beside him, spoke his language mergers, risk, the elegant arithmetic of power. She did not try to reach for his grief. She simply ignored it, which he found, after 2 years of people tiptoeing around it, almost refreshing. She came to the house twice in April, 3 times in May. Lily watched her from doorways. Nora said nothing, because it was not her place to say anything, and because she had long ago learned to keep the things she noticed to herself. What she noticed was, Claire Voss never addressed Lily directly, never kneeled to her level, never made the small, effortful adjustments that people who genuinely like children make instinctively and unconsciously. She looked at Lily the way people look at something inconvenient in their path, briefly, with calculation. What Nora did not know, Claire had an agenda that had nothing to do with Daniel's heart and everything to do with his business. She was connected to Marcus Vane, had been for years. She was there to finish what he had started. It happened on a Thursday. Daniel called Nora into the study at 9 in the evening. He was standing at the window, which she had learned meant he was trying to contain something. The room felt compressed, like the air before a storm. "I'm going to need you to leave," he said. "Tonight. I'll have your final check by morning." She stood very still. "May I ask why?" He turned. He held up his phone. On the screen was a photograph of her and a man she had never seen before, standing outside a building she didn't recognize, laughing. The caption, sent to him by an anonymous number, read, "Your nanny is working for Marcus Vane." There were 3 more photographs. There were 2 text messages, fabricated with clean, clinical precision, that appeared to show her reporting details about Daniel's schedule and home security to an unknown contact. "This is not me," she said. Her voice did not shake. "I don't know who that man is. I have to protect my daughter." His voice was flat, certain, already decided. "You're making a mistake. Pack your things." She looked at him for a long moment. There was something in her face, not anger, not even hurt exactly. Something more like sorrow. Like watching a person walk toward the edge of something without knowing it. She packed. She didn't cry, not in the house. She saved that for the car 2 miles down the road, pulled over on the shoulder, forehead against the steering wheel. She allowed herself 7 minutes. Then she drove. Lily knew before morning. She came downstairs at 6 a.m. and went to Nora's room and stood in the doorway and looked at the neatly made bed, the empty hook where the coat had hung, the absence of the small things that had accumulated over 3 years. She did not cry. She walked to the kitchen. She sat down at the table. She did not eat breakfast. She did not eat lunch. By the 3rd day, Daniel called the doctor. Lily had a fever low, persistent, the kind that is born not from bacteria but from the body grieving. "She's not sick," the doctor said carefully. "Not in the way you mean. What changed for her recently?" Daniel didn't answer. On the 5th day, Maggie found Lily in the hallway outside the coat closet, sitting on the floor with her back against the door, her arms wrapped around herself. When Maggie opened the door to look inside, she understood. Nora's extra coat, the good one, the blue wool one she had left behind, was still on the hook. Lily had been sleeping against the door to be as close to it as possible. Maggie reported this to Daniel. She did not do it gently. She found him in the kitchen at midnight. She was 63 years old and had worked for the Hartwell family for 19 years, and she had earned, she felt, the right to say hard things. "Sit down," she told him. He was her employer, but she said it like a fact rather than a request, and he sat. "That woman," Maggie said, "slept sitting up in a chair for 4 nights when your daughter was sick in October. She spent every penny of her October paycheck on Lily's birthday party and told no one. She turned down a dinner invitation from a very eligible man because Lily had a nightmare that night, and she didn't want her to wake up and find the house empty." She laid these facts before him one at a time, the way you lay stones across a river, each one a step closer to something. "She has never once, in 3 years, treated this job like a job. She treated your daughter like she was her own, and you handed her to the street in 10 minutes based on photographs from an anonymous source that you never once bothered to verify." The word verify landed like something dropped from a height. "Whoever sent you those photographs knew exactly what they were doing," Maggie said. "They knew you well enough to know that the one thing that would make you stop thinking clearly is a threat to Lily. They used your love for her against you, and you let them." She let the silence sit. Then, quietly, Sarah would be ashamed. She did not wait to see his face. She went to bed, downstairs in the kitchen. Daniel Hartwell sat very still, and for the first time in 2 years he cried. His investigator had the full report within 48 hours. The photographs were composites digitally altered with a precision that required real resources and real motive. The source traced back, through 3 layers of careful misdirection, to a number associated with one of Marcus Vane's holding companies. Claire Voss had accessed the house's home security app twice in the 3 weeks before the firing during visits that Daniel himself had facilitated. He called her. She came. He laid the report on the desk between them. She looked at it for a long time. Then she looked up, and the careful warmth that had lived in her expression for months was simply gone. In its place was something cleaner and colder and entirely honest. "You were never going to be able to protect yourself from him," she said. "This was going to happen with or without me. I just made it tidier." "Get out of my house," he said. On her way through the entryway, she passed Lily, who was sitting on the stairs. Lily looked up at her. Claire's gaze moved across the child the way it always had, that brief, calculating glance. "Strange child," she said, almost to herself. Daniel appeared in the doorway behind her. His voice, when it came, was very controlled and very quiet, which was worse than shouting. "If you or Vane come within reach of my family again, you will discover that I am a man with considerably more patience and considerably more resources than either of you have prepared for." The door closed. Lily looked at her father. For the first time in months, he kneeled down to her level. "I made a terrible mistake," he told her. "I'm going to fix it, I promise." She put her small hand against his face, then she turned and went upstairs. He stayed kneeling on the floor for a while. If this story is finding its way into your chest, please hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Because what comes next is the part I made this whole story to tell you, and I promise you won't want to miss it. He drove alone, no driver, no security. He found her town the way the story had begun in winter, on a road where the sky sat low and grey and the trees had forgotten their leaves. He had her forwarding address from the agency. He had driven 260 miles and rehearsed approximately nothing. She answered the door of the small rented house in an apron, clearly mid-task, clearly surprised. She did not invite him in. She stood in the doorway and waited. "I owe you an apology that is not sufficient for what I did," he said. "I know that. I'm going to give it to you anyway." She crossed her arms. She did not make it easy. She should not have had to make it easy. "I believe what I was shown without asking you a single question. You had given 3 years of your life to my daughter, to my household, and I gave you 10 minutes in a box, and I—" His voice stopped. He looked at the ground. He looked back up. "I have something I need to show you." He took out his phone. He turned it toward her. It was a video, 23 seconds. Lily, sitting on the floor outside the coat closet, arms wrapped around herself, face turned toward the door. Nora watched it once. Then she stood very still. "She stopped eating," he said. "She stopped talking to anyone. He stopped again. She needs you, not because I'm asking, not because I'm sorry, because you are the person who stayed." A long silence. "I'm not coming back for you," she said finally. "I want that to be clear. I know. I'm coming back for her. I know that too." She went inside to get her coat. Lily was in the garden when the car pulled in. She was sitting on the bench by the empty rose beds, wrapped in her winter coat, holding a book she wasn't reading. She heard the car. She looked up. She looked at the woman who stepped out of the passenger side. She dropped the book. What happened next was not graceful, and it was not small. It was a 6-year-old running with her entire body, arms forward, coat flapping, shoes hitting the gravel, and a woman who ran too, who came down on one knee and caught the child against her chest with a sound that wasn't quite a word and wasn't quite a cry, but was both. Lily's hands were in Nora's hair. Nora's arms were around her completely, the way the world should hold the things it almost let go. Daniel stood by the car. He did not try to join them. He watched. He understood, somewhere in the part of himself that had been slowly unfreezing for weeks, that this was not his moment. This was theirs. He let himself feel what it cost to have almost lost this. He let that be the lesson. She was not back for him. She had said so. He respected it. She moved back into the house, into her old room, and the house breathed differently. She began to draw again, pages and pages of birds and girls and yellow suns, and in the drawings the family unit kept gaining an extra figure without anyone discussing it. Daniel learned to make breakfast. He was catastrophically bad at it. He burned toast 3 mornings in a row with the focused dedication of a man who had decided to be useful regardless of the cost to the bread. Nora started leaving the kitchen on purpose when he cooked, claiming she needed to check something, and returning to find the toast scraped clean and still slightly smoking, and offered to her with an expression that was trying very hard not to be hopeful. She ate it every time. The conversation started late at night, him arriving in the kitchen for water, finding her there, both of them settling into the stillness the way you settle into something that fits. She told him about her mother eventually. About the laundromat apartment and the 9-year-old who had held everything together and learned too young that love was not a thing you could rely on to stay. He told her about Sarah, about the investigation that went nowhere, about the guilt that was worse than grief, because grief at least has a clear shape. They did not rush toward each other. They moved the way careful people move toward warmth, slowly, making sure it's real. The message arrived on a Tuesday, unknown number, 3 sentences, you should leave. What happened to Sarah can happen to anyone. He can't protect you. Nora sat with the message for 2 hours. She thought about Lily. She thought about what it would mean to bring something dangerous into this house, into this child's life, when it had already been broken once by exactly this kind of shadow. She began to pack at midnight. The way she had learned to do things as a child, without fuss, without announcement, just the practical work of going. He found her in the garden at 1 in the morning. She was sitting on the bench with her bag beside her, and her coat on, and her face very still. He sat down beside her without asking. A long moment passed. "Someone sent me a message," she said. "I know," he said. "Ray intercepted one directed at you last week. We've been monitoring. Vane is making noise. He isn't in a position to act. He's under investigation, and he knows we have everything." A pause. "I should have told you. I thought I was protecting you. You don't get to decide that for me." "No," he said. "I don't. That was wrong." He turned toward her. "What I can tell you is that I have spent the last 4 months trying to deserve the trust you gave this house the first time, and I know I haven't earned the right to ask for it again, but I am asking anyway." She looked at him for a long time. "You should have told me," she said again. "Yes, don't do that again. I won't." She didn't pick up her bag. It was a night in April, the kind of night that smells like the end of winter and the beginning of something that doesn't have a name yet. They were in the garden again. They had found their way back to the bench repeatedly, as though it had been waiting for them. The roses were beginning to come back. Everything was beginning to come back. "I need to say something," he said. "And I need you to know it's not gratitude. I know the difference. I felt gratitude. This is not what this is." She waited. "I love you," he said. "I love the way you eat burnt toast without flinching. I love that you sat in that chair for 4 nights so my daughter wouldn't wake up alone. I love that you came back when you had every reason not to. I love you in the way that doesn't come from needing something. It comes from just seeing you. Seeing all of you, and wanting to keep seeing you for the rest of my life." She looked at her hands. "I'm afraid," she said quietly. "I have been afraid of this exact thing my whole life. The loving that holds, the kind that doesn't leave." "So have I. We're a pair," she said. "Yes," a small smile. "I think that's rather the point." When he kissed her, it was careful and certain, under an April sky, in a garden full of things coming back. Lily's 7th birthday began with smoke. Daniel's 3rd attempt at birthday pancakes produced a skillet of evidence that he had, once again, confused medium heat with medium-high heat. The smoke alarm contributed its opinion. Lily, who had appeared in the kitchen doorway at 7:15 precisely, looked at the skillet and then at her father with an expression of philosophical acceptance. Nora appeared 30 seconds later, assessed the situation, and took over with the quiet efficiency of someone who has made peace with things she cannot change. They ate birthday pancakes that were actually good, and Daniel ate his burned ones without complaint, and the table was full of small ordinary happiness, which is the best kind. Then Lily, still in her pajamas, set down her fork. She looked at Nora. She looked at her father. She looked at Nora again. She said, "Papa." Both adults went still. "Can Nora be mine forever?" It was the most words she had strung together in 2 years. They landed in the kitchen like something holy. Daniel looked at Nora. Nora looked at Daniel. He reached into the pocket of his robe, an action that had clearly been planned, which meant he had been carrying this decision into ordinary Tuesday mornings for some time now, and he set a small box on the table. "I was going to do this properly," he said. "With dinner and candles and a speech I wrote 3 drafts of." He looked at his daughter. "She asked first." Lily nodded with satisfaction. He opened the box. He looked at Nora. "Nora Colloway, you are the person who stayed when you had every reason to go, who loved my daughter before you loved anything about this life, who showed me that open hands are not weakness." His voice was steady and true. "Will you let me spend the rest of my life making sure you never doubt that you deserve to be loved?" She looked at the ring. She looked at the man. She looked at the small girl watching her with those dark, hopeful eyes. "One condition," she said. He waited. "Don't ever let me go without a fight." "Never," he said. "Never again." She said yes, and Lily, who had not spoken a single complete word in 2 years, looked out the kitchen window at the April morning, pointed at something in the yard and said, "Mama, look." They both looked. A white butterfly was circling the garden, slow, unhurried, completely out of season above the rosebed that was just beginning to bloom. It made 2 loops, then it was gone. No one said anything for a long time. Then Daniel put his arm around Nora, and Lily climbed into both their laps, and the morning went on the way good things go on imperfectly, warmly, without end. Some people find each other in easy seasons, and some people find each other in the ruins of things after the loss and the grief and the mistake that couldn't be taken back. Those are the loves that know what they cost, the ones that were chosen not because it was simple, but because it was true. The loves that looked at every reason to go and said, "I'm staying, I'm staying, I'm staying, I'm staying."